and afterwards I was right.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeannie Weeks, Community Outreach Director for the Office of the Butler County Prosecutor, and I'd like to thank everyone for coming this afternoon as we present the final episode in our series on the crimes against the elderly. Today, we'll be addressing a very timely issue that affects not only our elderly citizens, but all homeowners: contractor fraud. Spring not only brings the sunshine and the birds, but it also brings with it high winds, thunderstorms, and hail that can cause damage to our properties. Unsavory contractors follow close behind, convincing homeowners they have heavy damage, and after receiving the check from their insurance company, little or no work is done. Today, we will share with you our top 10 tips for choosing a reputable contractor. We begin our presentation with Detective Thomas from the Westchester Police Department.
Good morning. Good afternoon, rather. My name is Jim Thomas. I'm with the Westchester Police Department. I've been in law enforcement for about 12 years now, and the last 4 years have been as a detective with our criminal investigation section. What I'm going to address this morning is we're going to start with the number one tip for choosing a reputable contractor. It says reputable contractors do not go door to door offering their services, do not enter into a contract with a door-to-door solicitor. I have two cases that I have dealt with in the last 2 years that involve door-to-door contractors that solicited elderly individuals and subsequently obtained large amounts of money for little service. The first investigation was conducted in October of 2010, involved a elderly gentleman that was in the beginning stages of Alzheimer's, lived in Westchester, and an individual by the name of Christopher Gibbs arrived at his residence and told him, hey, I can trim some bushes that you have out in your yard along with doing some mulching and cleaning up the beds, and I'll only charge you about $1,400. Whether or not that was an actual scam itself is debatable, but what he did, he actually did the work. He collected a check at the end of the day. The problem came in is when he returned 7 more times after that and continued to collect money from the elderly gentleman. Each time he told him he misquoted the original job and that he needed to collect more from him. Through the course of the investigation, I was able to determine that he was able to see that this gentleman had some form of what he thought was forgetfulness, and that's why he was able to go back and manipulate this individual in giving him more and more money. And each time, the gentleman would write him a check, and that guy, Christopher Gibbs, would go to the bank and cash it and collect the money. Overall, he took the gentleman for just under $19,000. The other case that I investigated started in December of 2010 and went till March of 2011, where a elderly lady that lived in Westchester got a knock on her door, and there was a guy by the name of Jason Johnson who had his own tree trimming business. He had driven through her neighborhood, saw a dead branch sticking out of one of her trees, and convinced her that that branch was going to come crashing down on her house at any moment's notice, and it needed to be cut down for a very minimal fee. Well, after he cut the branch down, part of his scam was to cut a piece of the tree off, take it into and show the victim and say, hey, your entire tree is infested and needs to come down. Subsequently, he ended up cutting 3 trees down, planting 3 new ones, and doing a lot more yard work, and he collected over $26,000 from her in about a 4-month period. Fortunately, through the cooperation of Butler County Prosecutor's Office, Westchester Police, Montgomery County, and Greene County, we were able to indict those 2 individuals who actually were working together. We were able to indict each of them through Greene County in a group effort, and they each got 8 years in prison over this. The biggest thing for you guys is how to identify a contractor scam. Several of the examples that we learned in the cases I just cited were they used very strong sales tactics. Obviously, they go door to door. A reputable sales company, in my opinion, does not need to go door to door. They advertise and they get a lot of their business through referrals. Girl Scouts go door to door. kids who sell candy through their school goes door to door. These individuals with these contractors, they had no credentials. When asked, they couldn't show credentials. They had no business cards, no formal paperwork. They gave no estimates. And a big thing, they collected checks at the end of the day. Even though the second victim that I told you about, they came back probably 8 to 10 different times and continued the work, they collected a check at the end of each day. And the reason for doing this is they can collect smaller amounts each day instead of one large amount at the end of the job, and it makes it seem like the individual is not paying that much money. What happens is, if you ever feel like you are the victim of some type of contractor scam, what you can expect from law enforcement. Well, with Westchester Police Department, when you call the police, we will send a road officer out to take the initial report. He's going to want to gather as much information from you as possible. He's going to want to see copies of the checks, copies of any contracts that you may have, any paperwork at all that you can gather. He's going to want to get copies of that so that when he passes the case on to us, the detective section, we can follow up through it, and we will probably come out and take pictures of your property. We will want to know as much as possible about the actual theft that occurred. That includes phone numbers to the contractors, addresses. Anything that you can provide for us will be very helpful. Like I said earlier, we did work in cooperation with other agencies, the prosecutor's office, the Ohio Attorney General's office, other counties, other county prosecutor's office, and other law enforcement agencies to make this happen, because unfortunately it's usually not just centered around one neighborhood. It's tri-state wide, multiple counties, and even cross state lines. So if you can think about it, contractor scams are real. They are out there. It's not just something you hear on the news. You could even had a knock on your door already and not even realize what was getting ready to happen to you. Do not accept door-to-door solicitors for big contracts such as blacktopping, roofing, tree trimming. Those are some of the bigger ones we see. Not to say that there are very reputable companies out there. In fact, one of the cases I called 3 reputable companies just from looking up in the phone book. And I got an average of their 3 estimates on what the guy had done to the lady's yard in cutting down the trees. They quoted me $8,100. There was an overcharge of over $18,000. So that tells you there are reputable companies out there. So don't hesitate to look those companies up, talk to people, and get referrals that way. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kyle Schuppe, and I'm a commercial property claims supervisor with Liberty Mutual Insurance. I've been with them for 25 years, and what I'd like to do is talk about a couple things. First of all, I'd like to talk about a insurance scam that contractors do, especially in hailstorm type situations. And what the practice is called dime spinning or quarter spinning. In essence, what this is a contractor usually will come door to door and ask the homeowner if they can get onto their roof to inspect the home to see if there's any damage to their roof. When the contractor gets on the roof, what they will do is they will take a dime, a quarter, some type of a coin, and as they're inspecting the roof, what they will do is they'll actually take the quarter, put it onto a shingle, and spin it back and forth. And what this does is it takes off the granules on the shingle. And what it does is it more or less makes it look like a hailstone actually hit that shingle. So what they'll do is they'll go over the entire roof, and they'll do this to the entire roof, come down, and tell the homeowner that they have hail damage to the entire roof and it needs to be replaced. So the homeowner will then go ahead, contact their insurance company, make a claim. The adjuster will come out, and it does look like hail damage, so they'll go ahead and replace the roof. The issue is that because of this, one, you've got a homeowner that's now out their deductible. You've got a insurance company that has paid money to replace a roof that really was in good condition prior to this. And in the event that this practice is taking place throughout the neighborhoods, you've got many homeowners that are losing their money because they have to pay their deductibles. And in addition to that, you've got insurance companies that are paying money they shouldn't be paying. And as a result of that, that increases the premiums for everybody. So it's very important to make sure that you have a contractor that you trust and that you can rely upon. And over there, after the presentation, there is a shingle that I've actually done a dime spinning on that you can actually see it, and it does look like there's hail bruises. Going forward, you know, in the event that you do have a storm that comes into your area, and let's say that you're not sure that you got damage, but you want to have someone take a look at it. One thing that you can do is you can contact your insurance company, tell them that you're in an area where a storm happened, you're not sure that there's damage, but you'd like to have someone come out there to inspect and take a look at it. Just because you make a claim does not mean that your insurance rates are going to increase. If the adjuster comes out, inspects the damage, and they don't see any damage to your home, they'll go ahead and close your file. And if there's no payment made out on the claim, you should not have an increase in your insurance rates. Now let's say that you do have damage to your home and you're not sure what contractor to use, or you're not familiar with any contractors. Most insurance companies have a program that's called a preferred contractor program. And what this is a list of local contractors in your area that are approved by the insurance company. Now, in order to get approved by the insurance company, these contractors got to go through a litany of tests. One thing that they need to do is they will usually have to meet with the insurance company, and the insurance company will interview them. Secondly, they'll have to set up an inspection, and they'll actually go and review and go over the facilities of the contractor. Third, they'll check the contractor's pricing guides to make sure that the contractor pricing is in line with the industry standards. The other thing that they'll do is a full background check, a financial background check on that contractor to make sure that they're sound. They'll also get in touch with other insurance companies to make sure that the contractor that they're going to put on a program is doing a good job. Are other insurance companies happy with their work? Finally, they'll go ahead and they'll check the Better Business Bureau to see if there's any complaints against a particular contractor. If there are complaints, has the contractor rectified the situation? If that contractor passes all those tests, then they'll be added to the program. And the good thing about this program is that the insurance companies will guarantee the contractor's work, usually for at least 2 years. So if there's any problem with the work that's done by a preferred contractor, all you need to do is contact the insurance company. They'll come out and inspect it, usually with that contractor. If there's any problems, they'll contact the contractor and they'll rectify the problem at no cost to you. So that's a service that the insurance company provides, and it's one really that a lot of policyholders should take advantage of. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andy Gosshorn. I'm with Able Services Restoration. I'm a contractor. Kyle gave a lot of good information there. I'm probably going to duplicate some of that. But we're a family-owned company. I'm a third generation. My grandfather started the business when I was 6 months old, so I've been around it for a long time. I have questions or statements 4 through 7 to go over with you. Number 4, always ask a contractor to provide a copy of certificate of liability insurance and workers' compensation insurance. That should be a real easy thing to ask. If anybody comes to your house and you ask that and they can't provide it, that's probably a good indication that you shouldn't hire them. And that's state by state, so they should have one. I'm assuming most people live in Ohio here. They should have a certificate from Ohio. Number 5, do not pay the contractor until the work is completed, and do not pay with cash. If a down payment is required, pay no more than a small fraction of the total contracted amount. Now, this is a little bit different in remodeling and insurance work. I know we're talking about two separate things here. I think most of it is insurance related and how fraud has occurred. In remodeling, 95% of our work is insurance related. We are fortunate enough to get a lot of referrals because we've been in business long enough to have repeat customers, so we do some remodeling. But with insurance work, you should never be giving them cash. You want to make sure that the insurance company is working with the contractor and that they're all on the same page before you sign anything. And yeah, giving them cash is a real bad idea. Okay. Number 6, do obtain more than one estimate. Reputable contractors do not charge for giving you an estimate. That is absolutely true. With some of these programs, like Kyle was talking about, you may only need one estimate, but make sure that they're on the list to do the repairs, because trust me, they go through an extensive process to make sure that we're okay with our credit and how long we've been in business, and make sure we have enough cash and all that good stuff. I like to joke with Kyle that he needs a blood test, but that's another story. Number 7, reputable contractors do not offer ways to get around paying your deductible. That is true, and that's something we have faced here recently with the economic times. That is one of the first questions I get, whether they come right out and say it or they beat around the bush. I can usually tell what they mean. So we can do some things to help offset the deductible, which could be, okay, I'll write the estimate as it has to be written per the guidelines of the program, and you can maybe paint this room, I can credit back part of that, and that might offset a little bit of your deductible. Now, I know Kyle probably doesn't like that right now, but to me that's legitimate. It does get a little bit complicated because of what we call profit and overhead that's added on to the end of the estimate that is not technically owed to the customer. But that's something we can work around. But I do want to mention that if you are a renter, the owner of the building or house is the person that holds the insurance policy for the dwelling, which means the actual structure. If you have renter's insurance, then, and Kyle can talk about this too, if you have renter's insurance, which I recommend to everybody because it's not that expensive, that's a good question, then the contents, everything in the house, depending on the policy, condo policies are a little bit different, but anything hanging on the walls and inside is usually considered a content and would be considered as a renter's policy. Referring to Angie's List, I think that's a good idea because it is all consumer based. I have a little bit of experience with Angie's List. We're not involved with it directly.
Contractor have to pay to get on Angie's List?
No, but to get a little bit higher, not to get too complicated, to get advertisement, you do have to pay a little bit. But no, it is all consumer driven. So I do think that's a good program. Better Business Bureau is good, I believe. I still think that's one of the better ways to go. I went over my 3-minute So, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Hesterberg. I represent an industry that you may or may not be familiar with, and that's the home inspection industry. I want to take a few minutes to explain to you how this can benefit consumers when it comes to construction and work on your home. We're actually about prevention. Home inspectors are qualified in construction, qualified in the systems of a home. One of the issues of why fraud is getting, I think, more rampant today is because systems and houses are getting more complicated. There's a lot of issues in homes today that people do not understand. And a lot of people are saying things are going on with my home and you don't know, and not just the elderly, but anybody. I've personally been involved in the prosecution of some unscrupulous contractors. I'm usually called in two areas: A, the unscrupulous contractor, but also the work that's been done and hasn't been done right. Okay, because you're being told, yes, it has been, and all this information is given to you, and how do you know? How do you know? A home inspector has the ability to come in and be your advocate. In all of this, you can pick up the phone and have an industry come in. Yes, you hire them, but you hire them to be your advocate, much like your family doctor. And they can come in and they can tell you whether something was done properly and tell you why it was or was not done. And therefore, you're not going it alone with a contractor. Good contractors are good contractors, but unscrupulous contractors, it's not hard to unfoil what they've done, especially if someone like myself who knows what they're doing. Home inspector, real quickly, to be qualified as a home inspector, you have to take a 6-hour national exam. Okay, you have to be certified by a national certifying body. It's not an easy credential to obtain. We talked about the roof shingle. To give you an idea, I've been called out on those before, where someone says, do I really have hail damage? And as an inspector, we're coming out and not just looking at the shingle that's been divoted. What we're doing is we're looking at the whole system. And I can usually tell due to the prevailing winds and where the weather comes from and other denting on flashing and so forth, it isn't just about the couple of shingles that have been divoted. I can pretty much tell this is not hail, okay? Because we're there to look at the whole system. So home inspectors can actually help you and be your advocate when it comes to your home. And that's really the message I want to give out, because most people think we're there for, well, if someone's going to buy a home, call a home inspector. That's not true. That is one of our roles, but it's also call a home inspector if A, you think somebody is telling you you need to have something done with your home and you're not sure, or somebody has done work and you're thinking, wait a minute, I don't know if this has been done right. Somebody has suggested it has not. Because we get calls all the time about work not being done properly, and we're able to come in and determine that and stand on your side. So that's the message I wanted to give out today, that it's not all gloom and doom, and law enforcement has a role, and they have a very good role. The problem is it's after the fact, okay? And it's a difficult position. I would prefer to say be before the fact. So whether you're elderly or whether you're anybody who owns a home, or in fact rent. Let me talk to that just for a minute. We have renters that have unscrupulous landlords, okay? And they've been telling their landlord about a defect, and the landlord's saying, it's not a problem, we've fixed it. We've been called in even by people who rent to be able to tell them, no, that's not true. And this is why, and this is where you need to go. Sometimes it's to law enforcement, sometimes it's to building inspectors. Let us help you in that area. I'd like to thank you for letting me present this today. I'm with Building Inspections here in Cincinnati, and we've been operating for about 20 years. Thanks.
My name is Joel Demery. I'm with the State of Ohio Department of Insurance's Fraud Division. Basically, that's the criminal investigation section with that state agency. We regulate the insurance industry as well as all the insurance companies. When they suspect fraud, they report it to us by statute. Our cases involve a variety of different areas of insurance fraud, but unfortunately I do see a lot of the contractors, a lot of the roofers, and I wanted to impart with you guys a few tips that I've seen. It's going to be a little bit of repeat, but the nice thing is we've got a real nice tie-in with all the different facets here. Absolutely, the detective here talking about someone soliciting at your home, it always makes me raise an eyebrow. We're getting into the storm season, and you will see the storm chasers out and about. If you get confronted with a storm chaser, you should ask some questions. you have a physical location. It's always good to know if they have a physical location in Ohio, because if there's a problem, you want to be able to actually contact them. Unfortunately, I see a lot of times they give a P.O. box because they've come in from out of state. As soon as they've gotten what they have out of that claim, they blow out of town. So it's always good to ask for that. There's so many good points that were brought up. Don't pay in cash. I hate to say that. I see a lot of instances where they grab the cash and then they run. They move on to the next storm area. I mean, hailstorms, straight line winds, the thunderstorms, it's all things that unfortunately I see the bad side. But folks are just trying to make a quick buck and move on. There's always good contractors. The question to always ask is, are you on Better Business Bureau? Andy mentioned that earlier. It's a good website to check. Check with your insurance companies. One of the quick things I always see, the contractors say, don't call the insurance company yet. You always hear that. You pay to have a policy. You need to call and put them on notice. Okay? Just like Kyle said, you know, claims not going to affect your policy rates, things like that. You've got to get it at least on the books, though. Because at some point in time, there's going to be some damage. You've got to protect that house. A few other tips that I'd like to mention, though, is when they do show up, if you let somebody up on your roof to look at the damage, stay with them. I see too many allegations where they let them go up on the roof because maybe they're not comfortable. They just kind of want to just go back inside and kind of watch from afar. You want to make yourself a good witness, unfortunately. I see a lot of instances where the guy goes up on the roof, you have your doubts, and what are they doing? They're breaking tabs. They're doing the damages, they're doing the dime spinning. You want to be able to kind of take note of that because, like the detective said, you want to be a good witness. You want to know things. You want to stay on top of things. This is your home. You've got to protect it. And a couple other points is the schemes that I see. You know, let's face it, the diming, the creating damage, they're trying to inflate the value of that claim. Don't sign anything in a rush. It's always that way. I hate to say that. The high-pressure sales and tactics, you don't know. You want to read that stuff. Take what they have, look at it overnight, consult with family and friends. That gives you time to do your research. You don't want to sign away the rights on your claim. I've seen it, unfortunately, where your power of attorney on your claim gets signed away and all of a sudden a check gets cut to the homeowner or to the insurance company, and it's a two-party check, but somehow they get it negotiated and cashed. You want to maintain control of that claim. And that's one of the bigger areas I see right now is you just don't want to lose control with that. You know, communicate with your insurance company, work with local law enforcement. Those are really keys. I mean, these are your home. You want to protect it. You want to stay safe. You want to work with locals, okay? I'll stick around for some other tips. The last thing I have for you is there's a brochure up here on the side. If you would, grab it. It's got some other tips in there in case you're involved with an insurance claim out of a storm. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Susan Schultz, and I'm Assistant Prosecutor with the Butler County Prosecutor's Office. I work in the White Collar Crime Division. Along with Prosecuting Attorney Michael Mosier and White Collar Crime Division Chief Dan Ferguson, I handle primarily all of the financial and consumer frauds for our office. Over the last 3.5 years, we have engaged in the successful prosecution of over 350 financial crimes. The aggregate of those cases mean that Butler County residents have been defrauded of over $16.5 million. Of those cases, approximately 30% of those have involved prosecution against those who have defrauded the elderly through a variety of scams. One of the most prevalent is the topic of discussion for today, home improvement and construction fraud scams. Over the past couple years, everyone here can agree with me that there have been tremendous windstorms that have raked through southern Ohio, causing varying degrees of damage to homes and also creating open season for the slick and silver-tongued individuals who pose as legitimate contractors. Elderly homeowners are the #1 target of these contractor fraud scams. Why? Well, in way of comparison, those in their 40s, 50s, and 60s are physically able to do the household chores, clean out the gutters, climb up on the chimneys, saw off that broken limb that's hanging from the tree, or else they have a spouse to rely upon to do those things. The elderly, not so much. In fact, not at all. The elderly are physically unable to perform yard work, do upkeep, which makes them prime targets. Many elderly have unfortunately lost their spouse and are living alone, or else are tending full-time to a bedridden spouse. As a result, they have lost their sense of reliance and balance in life. This makes the elderly vulnerable and more susceptible to relying and trusting on these strangers who knock on the door to offer to fix these external problems with the house, especially after a windstorm when the elderly homeowners actually believe that there may be damage to their home. One such a case occurred in Middletown. After a storm, an individual, now a defendant, knocked on the door of the home of an elderly couple, the husband bedridden and the elderly wife with a Dowager hump. After some fast talking and crawling up on that chimney, or crawling up on the roof to inspect the chimney and the shingles, the defendant convinced that elderly wife that there was damage to her chimney. The elderly wife didn't have any way to determine whether or not the defendant was telling her the truth. One, she couldn't crawl up to the roof. Number two, it had been a while since any work had actually been done on her home. And three, it made sense to her that there may be some damage to her roof or chimney area after the storm. So she entered into a verbal contract with this individual. How did the defendant return the favor of being hired for a job? Well, by simply taking a can, a $2 can of black spray paint, crawling up that chimney, spraying that paint around the chimney to mimic flashing, and then taking the elderly couple's hard-earned money. This defendant did the same thing to several other elderly homeowners in the area until he was caught, and his home is now prison. Ladies and gentlemen, do not be bamboozled by these con artists. Just beware, please beware of anyone who knocks on your door who you didn't invite to your home and person who is offering services that you didn't ask for. If you truly believe that something may be wrong with your home, shingles, etc., whatever the self-reported contractor is telling you is wrong with your home, just stop and think before you enter into this contract. Take your time regarding the decision of who to hire to fix your home. You need to ask for a list of references. These contractors are slick. Not all. There's obviously very reputable contractors out there, but the ones who come knocking door to door and with their fast talking, just be careful. Don't merely rely upon a reference list handed to you by that contractor or even a photo book of prior jobs. This list may be full of bogus numbers, and the photo book may include pictures of other contractors' jobs or even pictures taken off the internet. So don't take that reference list at face value. Call, take your time, call those numbers on the reference list. Ask that reference how he or she knows that contractor. Ask about the job performance. Was that homeowner pleased with the contractor? Ask about any extra costs that occurred above the base price of that contract. If the contractor doesn't want to give you the list, or he makes excuses about giving you a reference list, then don't enter into a contract with that contractor. Kick him out the door. If the contractor doesn't have a reference list, then you are taking the chance that you are his first job. Would anyone here buy the first car ever manufactured from an unknown car manufacturer? No, absolutely not. So don't buy the services from this contractor who's knocking on your door. Now let's say the references check out. Is that enough to know that you are signing with a legitimate contractor? No. You still need to check the contractor's reputation with the Better Business Bureau as well as the Attorney General's office, as everybody here has said today. You need to see if there are any other complaints filed against this contractor. Now, even if there are no complaints filed against this contractor with the Better Business Bureau or the AG's Attorney General's office, you still can't assume that the contractor is reliable. In this industry, unfortunately, construction scammers frequently change their business name to fool unsuspecting homeowners. So, you need to check also with the Ohio Secretary of State to see if that business is legitimately registered as a business. Now, once you have decided that, okay, I'm ready, I'm going to enter into this contract with the contractor, what do you need to do? Well, you need to get it in writing. Absolutely get it in writing. Now, what should the contract include? We've listed a couple things here. It's number 8 on our top 10 tips for choosing a reputable contractor. We list there you need to get the total cost of work in writing. You also need to get the terms of payment of materials and labor in writing. You need a starting date, you need a completion date. In addition, you need the contractor's name, address, phone number. I would also suggest asking them for the main, if there is going to be a subcontractor, getting that subcontractor's name on that contract as well. You also need a complete description of the work to be done and any verbal promises that that contractor makes to you, make sure that that also is in writing. In addition, you also need an explanation of any guarantee or warranty, and would also be a great idea to get a provision in there that states you, the homeowner, are not required to pay attorney fees, court costs, or damages in case of a dispute or resolution. Also, both parties need to sign that contract. Now remember, never ever ever sign a contract until you understand the terms in that contract. If you are confused over a term, or you think anything in that contract is favoring that contractor in a lopsided way, then don't sign that contract. What should you do? You should take that contract to a lawyer. Frankly, you should go ahead and tell that contractor that you are going to have a lawyer review that contract with you. If the contractor gives you a hard time or starts fast talking, then kick him out the door. Don't sign that contract. Also remember that the contract should not require a large down payment, let alone payment in full, until the project is completed. In the sound words of prosecuting attorney Michael Mosier, these contractors need you more than you need them. If they can't afford to start the work without a deposit, then you cannot afford to let them do the work. So again, what do? You kick them out. Now keep in mind that if you do sign a contract with a contractor who comes knocking on your door, and lo and behold, you start getting that sick feeling in your stomach, like, oh no, what did I just do? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you may have a right of rescission, and you need to contact a civil attorney immediately. Under the Ohio Home Solicitation Sales Act, consumers have 3 days to cancel most contracts that they sign at their home. Door-to-door salespeople must notify you of that right to cancel and provide a cancellation form to you. You should demand this form from the contractor. If the contractor does not provide you with this form upon your request, again, kick that contractor out and don't sign that contract. Okay, but in the event that something happens and you are victimized by a construction scammer, or you know somebody who has been victimized by any scam, what do? Well, the first point of contact should always be law enforcement. But if you are not sure which law enforcement agency to call, or if you're not sure what you have to report is actually criminal, then what you need to do is call the Elderly Task Force hotline. This hotline is for victims of a crime. It's also for witnesses and family members who want to report a crime. And thirdly, it is for Butler County residents to alert our task force and in turn the public to all ongoing scams. Now, for numerous reasons, not every case is criminal, nor may every case be suitable for criminal prosecution. We realized this during the initial formation of our task force, and with that foresight, we included elder-specific social services agencies and financial institutions as part of our task force. As such, depending on your situation, the prosecutor's office will instruct you that you will be receiving a phone call from either the respective law enforcement agency or the social services agency. Our office will follow up on your matter, as well as dispense some helpful tips on how to prevent fraud in the future and what to do now that you are a victim. It is through this educational component of our task force that creates public and individual awareness, which helps prevent elder abuse and fraud. This task force has made an unwavering commitment to do everything within our power to prevent these intolerable crimes being committed against our elderly. Last week, prosecuting attorney Mike Mosier made a call to arms. He encouraged all Butler County residents to engage in a countywide neighborhood watch in favor of the elderly. The task force is asking you to watch out for the elderly like you would want your neighbor to look out for burglars when you're away from home. Please join us in the commitment to help prevent crimes against the elderly by paying that extra close attention to the elderly in your own lives and by reporting to the hotline any scams and specific instances of abuse and fraud. Thank you very much, and now I'll turn the floor back over to Jeannie Weeks.
I would like to mention that in the back on the podium out there, we do have copies of our top 10 that you can take with you. We also have made it available on our website at www.countyprosecutor.org so that you can download it. Please reference it the next time somebody comes knocking on your door before you kick them out. Check it, check everything out. Also, over there by the window, we do have a shingle so you can see how the purported damage will look. And as we wind up today, there are some thank yous that some people who really need to be acknowledged. First of all, I'd like to thank our Butler County Commissioners for making our task force a reality. Their support has been instrumental in our success. We need to be able to thank law enforcement. Today we're represented by Westchester, and we appreciate them coming down. Every law enforcement agency in Butler County has a representative on our task force. The elderly services that serve the elderly citizens here in Butler County have representation, and our business community is instrumental in getting our message out to you. I'd also like to take this time to thank Miami Hamilton for hosting us and TV Hamilton for their cooperation in bringing this message to everybody. And in the words of Butler County Prosecutor Michael Mosier, remember, forewarned is forearmed. Thank you very much. Question and answer.